Okay? Is this loud enough? Cool. I will try not to move around. I've heard the creaking of the floor. Now that I've said that, you're all going to listen to that rather than my voice. So, dark mode. Thank you, Patrick. Hopefully it'll all be visible. There's quite a few bits which are dark and stuff, but I don't really want to go into mood lighting and turn the lights off. So let's see how it all goes. Can you quickly raise your hand, all of you? I just want to get used to raising hands. Everyone raise your hand. Awesome. Start. So how many of you guys have used LabVIEW for more than 5 years? Good. So hopefully you guys can teach me some of the stuff I'm about to talk about then. No? So when I was talking to Chris about coming to present, I was told to choose a topic, and he kind of gave me a topic, really. And what did you call it? Sexy UIs or something? That's not what I chose, just to clarify. I will be talking about user interface, some tips and tricks here and there. And yeah, hopefully you'll learn something. Hopefully you'll, well, I don't know if that's a hope at all. I'm hoping that if you've used LabVIEW for more than 5 years, you've already known all of these things, and it's just a reminder. And for everyone else, it'll be a tips and tricks kind of thing. But if you do, great. If not, hopefully you're entertained. That's all I can say, really. So to kick it off, I'll introduce myself first. Robotics and Automated Systems major. That was down in Plymouth. I've been doing LabVIEW, started at NI since 20 years ago-ish. And now coming up to, I've worked at various different companies. I'm currently an architect, also a CPI. I've heard my name spoken a few times. I'm a LabVIEW champion. What that means is basically I can talk about LabVIEW quite freely. And there are some perks about it. We do have a voice. So the things I've heard, Petru talking about the features that are not seen, even if they've been kudoed lots, all of that stuff I can take back to an R&D meeting effectively, which we have every month. So just to market that thing. I've been working as control software solutions with David, who's there, David, for the last year or so. And we've worked with some amazing customers in UK mainly, and now we've got America as well, pharmaceuticals, nuclear, medical, Raman spectroscopy, a few other different industries as well. We've got good number of people in the company who do PLC stuff, Python, that kind of stuff. So it's not just LabVIEW that we do. I also have a company, a family thing that we do. I go to schools and teach teachers how to teach coding to students kind of thing. It's a family thing. And through that, how many of you guys do other things other than LabVIEW? Can you raise your hand? So you talk other languages, perfect. C#, Flutter, cool. Scratch, perfect. So with that, we kind of make a few apps and stuff as well, mainly for mobiles, but they're also cross-platform. So we do Flutter, and it's cross-platform, so it can go into desktop, web applications, that kind of thing. You've also heard about GDevCon just now, so that's also what I'm involved in. I'm on the board. We organize events for you to come in with Jolly and hopefully learn some stuff as well. So that's me. And I think I've got to know some of you guys by raising your hands as well. So thank you very much for that. So let's see if this works now. Okay. So most of us like an order. I like chaos where we can sort of see what's going on. So don't expect this next 40 minutes or so now left to be very informative at all. There'll be chaos in place. We all live in a society now where everything is driven by money. It's very capitalist. You're all here to learn new stuff. Hopefully you can go back and impress yourself, impress your boss, impress whoever you're working with to create something that can, at the end of the day, make some money, right? So that's how the world currently works. So if you don't know that, then yeah, try harder. So having said that, appearances can be deceiving. What I'm going to do is just show you a little clip here. You can see that, not too dark. So this is just a simple application. I'm not going to ask you if this was written in LabVIEW or in Flutter, but it's an application where it's supposed to be a responsive UI. And when we say responsive UI in that domain, in UI space, you're talking about something that adjusts itself based on the condition that it's running on, whether it's in mobile, it shows you different menu items or whatever. So what you saw just then was the UI scaling. While you scale the UI, you see some buttons appear and some buttons disappear. Quite simple, right? And that is basically going to be the talk. All right. So no need to raise hands. How would you do this in LabVIEW? You've all done LabVIEW more than 5 years, right? Lots of property noise. Okay. How would you do it with property noise? Visible, invisible?
Not the stuff that LabVIEW would do that makes this easier, but nothing that LabVIEW would do makes this easy.
Can you not just I can't remember what it does. Obviously, just a customized control. Literally select on the top and then have it auto scale into the window size automatically.
Customized
I
control.
can't remember what you can do.
No, that's true.
You can get single splitters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so splitters,
Yeah, splitters. Sort of panels.
Yeah.
subpanels. Explain. Okay, cool. Cool. Some good ideas there. So all of which I can understand it will work. Okay, so I'm going to break that down and go it in steps. So we've got a few Boolean controls over here. How many of you guys have created a Boolean control or something that might look like that? Yeah, a few hands. Lovely. Easy? Relatively easy. Cool. And the others who haven't, hopefully you'll kind of know what they already know right now over the course of the next session.
It's actually a lovely idea to.
I almost planted that one. That was great. So yeah, absolutely accept that. The which one is what. Yep. Cool. So I'm going to start with colors first, because anytime you're trying to make something that looks sexy, good, we're trying to find out what it is. So there's a website called colors, COOLORS.co. Anyone come across that website before? Some nod of heads, good. What's that little tool on the side? What's the hexadecimal display? Does anyone know what that is? It's a hex ID for the color, yes, but how do you get that little window?
Use the Power Toys tool.
Perfect. So there's a Power Toys. If you don't know what Power Toys is, Google, Microsoft, it'll let you download it. Power Toys allows you to basically hit Windows, Shift, C, I think, which brings up a little cursor. And once you've clicked on it, it'll give you all the what the colors are. It also handily gives you other colors that might go along with it, so you can sort of create a palette of sorts. What you can also do is actually go to colors.co, and it allows you to create a palette for yourself. If you are starting to figure out, okay, well, I want my UI to look a certain color, you can auto-generate colors, and you can lock them down. You can generate, I think, more if you have a license, but as a free person, you can select, and it'll randomly generate a color that goes along with it. If you don't want to do that, there are also a whole bunch of pre-selected palettes that you can go through and explore all of those. There are other tools here which are pretty useful. The one I like the most is the contrast checker, where you can set a color background and set a text color, and then you can see what the score is. So you can see how readable something is. So black on white is not quite readable because there's too much of a contrast, that kind of thing. So this is very useful to figure out how you can make something readable without hurting someone's eyes. One of my favorite things in here is also the palette generator from a picture. So if you've got a logo or something that you want to generate from, you can just point at it quite easily, and then it generates a palette for you. All of that, then you can take away and within LabVIEW, I don't know if you guys have done this before or not, but within LabVIEW, what you can do is in your property, options, you can set those colors as your default colors. And when you do this, for the shift across, when you do this, you can name the particular color. So here I'm going ahead and taken the RGB value and plummeted it down, give it a name. Sorry about the noise next door as well. Online people can't hear it, I'm pretty sure, but it's pretty loud in here. Once you do that, what it will do is when you try and select a color, it comes up on the user row, which means that it'll just be there whenever you open up LabVIEW next time. Okay. I wouldn't color the blue as a main UI because it's kind of a little bit cringe, but anyway, there we go. LabVIEW.ini file. Everyone know what LabVIEW.ini is? Nod of heads. Anyone not know what LabVIEW.ini is? So LabVIEW.ini is basically a configuration file for LabVIEW, and whenever you open LabVIEW up again, there you can see it shows you at the bottom mlog is now saved. So next time you open it up, it'll remain there. If you're in a team, and we had a very good talk about sustainable teams earlier, you would probably have a custom LabVIEW file that goes out to all your team members. So that palette of colors is the same for everyone. So that line is what you would need to copy out. Any thoughts or questions? I do have a habit of just motor mouthing it, so I'll pause.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about if you're working on multiple projects, can you redirect LabVIEW into your inside your like Git repo or something like that?
I've not tried.
Surely there's a path somewhere written that actually points back to the relative LabVIEW you've got in your phone. Or is it just picking up all that device version?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. What I have done is have not quite a repository, but different configuration for different projects. So I know that I'm actively deploying a different LabVIEW file when LabVIEW shut down as a thing. That's just part of my script for opening projects up, so that you can do that. So when LabVIEW shut down, you can update that. Maybe. Good way of doing it. Cool. Nice. Oh yeah.
You only need to add the file star.ini to the project. That's some clarification for you to start.
Yeah, not sure I understand that. Cool. We can definitely come back to this later. The next thing is splitters and panes. Has anyone not heard of pane relief? Not physical pain relief, but PANE relief. No, okay, so that's a good point to point this out. Then there's a tool in VI Package Manager called Pane Relief, PANE Relief. And what it basically does is pops up a little dialog, not quite a model dialog, but a simple dialog that pops up, and it shows you how many different panes and subpanels that you've got in your UI or in your VI that you've selected. And then it allows you to move them around. You can also make a splitter. Actually, this might be a question rather than a statement. The splitters that you put on your VI, what's the smallest pixel size you can make them?
It's 2 pixels, but there's a trick to get them to 0 pixels, and this allows you to set them to 0 pixels.
Thank you, Patrick. So you can get them to 1, generally speaking, if it's a classic type, because the other ones have got a little bit of animation, or not quite animation, but customization on them, so you can't really make them smaller. With this one, it's, yeah, you just type 0 on it and it's invisible. You can still see that they are there.
System types.
That won't work. Yeah. Don't use system splitters. System stuff, but most other things, it makes sense. Splitters, yeah, just use a. Is it classical? I would go for just the ones that are flat. You can name the splitters and panes as well. Then that way, what you can do is if you're dynamically receiving or doing things to your UI, you can get references to them using VI scripting, so you don't have to kind of have them in memory kind of thing. Any other thoughts on the splitting panes and splitters?
No, just to put that blindly, because that's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love it. The next one is to actually create the custom controls and indicators. So all of this is referring back to the little video that I played at the beginning, right? So you've created custom controls and indicators. So if you have an image, you want to remove the background, how do you remove it generally in your day-to-day life right now? If you have an image, you want to remove background, what tools do you use? Paint?
Paint.net.
Oh, paint.net, okay. Okay. I was a bit shocked then. Obviously no. So paint.net, cool. Any other tools? Photoshop, nice.
I'm going to quote John Porter here. He did it previously in use.
Not to make image transparent. PowerPoint's quite good for sort of custom boolean data. I tend to use GIMP, which is a
GIMP,
bit
yeah.
version of Photoshop.
Yeah, so there are various different tools that you can use, right? Why would you do that? Why would you remove background? Non-square background. So if you're someone like me and you really like your own picture in your application, you could do that technically. Which doesn't mean you should, but you could. So getting into more useful things then, what you can do then is you can have a foreground and a background, not foreground, when it's clicked or true or false kind of images, and you can make parts of it transparent. And that, if you save it in a PNG format, then you can kind of make that work by making it transparent. Does anyone know what PNG stands for? You're answering all my questions today, Pedro. Lovely. So portable network graphics, what they allow you to do is, I've got a little demo here again, 3 different backgrounds, same button, true or false. Granted that on the white background, you can't really see where the button is. The invisibility or the transparency of the square plus in the middle is preserved. So the button is wider. You can see that it works on multiple different types of backgrounds. So that's the advantage of using PNGs and getting an image to do exactly that. So if I was to tell you, those of you who've not done LabVIEW for who have done LabVIEW for less than 5 years, how would you create a button like that? That's a Boolean control. I'm not going to let you explain that because it might take a while. What you would do is you would open up the control in customize view, and then you would import an image. You would put the image as a background or the image as a foreground for true or false. And this is a minimal effort kind of approach. So you want to make a button which has got a foreground and a background different color. And you want to put something in the front of it, which is like a decal. It's called a decal. And that way, what you will get is a button that looks something like this. So here I'm importing a power decal into it. So when you toggle it from true to false for a square button, that would work fine. So easily like that, you can create something that is customizable. So your true is a particular color, your false is a particular color. Then you can change the decal for each of your controls. Straightforward enough? If that was the only thing you needed to do, that would be pretty good, right? So we use mouse in most of the UIs that we use nowadays. Obviously, you can have touchscreens and so on, but the states that it allows you to have is not just 2, is it? So you said something about how many different states are there for Boolean? 6. For that, there's a handy little tool by StudioBots, if you've not come across this, which allows you to choose the different states. So here you've got false, true, true to false transition, false to true transition, false hover, true hover. They say what they mean. So anytime you move your mouse over it, that's a hover. If it's false already, it's a false hover, and so on. You can select different images that go into it. So that way you can kind of create something that might look like a little bit of an animated button. So at the bottom over here, I've got a hover state, a true state, a clicked state, a pressed state as well. And the same buttons look pretty acceptable for whatever background there is. Everyone following through so far? And you were saying earlier that that part was quite hard to know which one is what. So using that tool, you can quite easily just say which picture you want to go where and go ahead with it. So that then leads up to the next question. Where do you get good PNGs? Where would you get it from? Internet, Google. Lovely. Any other sources? Basically, steal is what you just said. But...
You could still get JPEG and then convert them. You can use.
Okay.
There's lots of libraries that are available for commercial use material by from Google.
Okay. Yeah, so flat, that's pretty useful, yeah. Any other sources? That's the first place I would probably go to. If I know that there's going to be a fair amount of work that I need to get done and it needs to look professional, hire someone who can design it for you. That way you don't have to spend your time doing it. So if you were doing that, there are certain tools, either the designer or you might use, right? And for that, you might use any of those listed on the screen right now to do your icon creation, okay? And if you really don't like yourself too much, you might use PowerPoint to do that as well, and you work with centimeters and millimeters rather than actual pixel dimensions. The one I'm going to focus on right now is Figma. How many of you have heard about what Figma is? 2, 3, perfect. No? Cool. Figma is one of those things that you can create an icon in. So I'm going to go through a couple of little demos, which hopefully will make you want to go and use Figma. You can have a free license. I'm not selling it. I don't work for them or anything like that. Here I've got a little template where I've defined a few colors. So for my 6 states, I've just chosen a few handy colors. So where I've got true or false. So my backgrounds, I've got 6 of them, and I've designed a particular button, and it's called a component in here. And I've got different variants within that button. Okay, so I've got size, which is 48 pixels wide, and I've got icon that I place in there as well. For this exercise, I've kind of chosen to have 2 icons that go in it. One of them is a true icon, and one of them is a false icon. So I kind of want a little bit of flexibility to play with that. I could make both of them the same if I wanted to. And the only other thing I just mentioned is that one's a smaller button size. And I've also properties which allow me to make these appear with the text, without the text, choose the size, that kind of thing. So once I've got that as a template, if you like, what I can then go ahead and do is load up a material. And Figma is what most people use in UI design, and you can integrate this into various different coding languages really easily. And you can have the entirety of the material icon just available there. Okay, so for this exercise right here, I've got, I think I'll choose a power or one of the buttons. There we go. So just a power, and what you can do is just double click on it. It goes into effectively your diagram. You can then drag and drop it into the icon area. So I've got 2, remember I said there's a true and a false. Once that's in there, you can move that around in the area. So you just saw me move it up. You will see me move it up a little bit. There we go. And it shows you exactly what it looks like. I want to put another one down. So let's put the same, but we'll change the color for this one. So when it's true, it might be a slightly different shade. And all of this is very intuitive, right? For people who work with block diagrams, hopefully this is not too much work or too much effort. For people who are in UI and UX design, this is the stuff that they would do. Try and automate the generation of the files themselves. The PNGs is what we're looking for. So here I've got the true variant of the power symbol being a different color. So I can see, okay, well, it changes color. Once I've got that, hit Control R to rename. So in this example, I just renamed the cut part of it to power. Great. And there's an easy way to just export all 6 files. So those are all 6 of your true, false, hover states. And within a couple of minutes there, I've got a new button image or set of images for a new button. Do you think that simplifies your workflow if you're trying to create new buttons? You can see Andy nodding his head a little bit. Any thoughts and questions?
Process then of getting it into the bottom.
I'm glad you asked that. So you could, it's almost like I'm planting these questions. So you could go ahead and do what you were doing before. You have the images now, you can load them into clipboard like you saw me do for the true and false on the decal, and then you can go through that process for one button, 6 different images. You can extrapolate how long that might take you. So once we have all the files there, and I'm not selling this, this is the tool that we've got, which effectively takes a directory with the names of them, and you point it to that and say, here are my source images. Can you just give me a LabVIEW button I can use? That way, what we've effectively done is take away the design part of the button completely out of the developer's part of the button. So with that, I've got the power button that's in LabVIEW that's been generated. So now I can, as a developer, go ahead and use that. And I know that it's got the different states as a UI person has intended for that to look like. Yeah, it will be. It is already in GitHub. It's been my passion project, if you like, for a little while. It is in GitHub. It's kind of private repository right now. I will look to open it up once I clean the code up a little bit. Yeah. No, absolutely. So the actual thing, the way to do it is just a call to a C library, that LabVIEW. It's already on LavaG. So I've not created something new. All I've done is made it work to my workflow. So as long as the file names, and I can define these like the dash dash, false, dash dash, whatever it is, as long as those files are named to a particular type and I can add to those types, it'll work. Do you think that's a useful tool? Shall I make it open source? All right, I can't say no now. Chris is nah. So what you can do, taking this to the next level forward, right? So once you've got those buttons, it's all great as single buttons, but how do you then get it to a developer using it in the application that they're making? So you then, I'll just go through the steps one more time. So in Figma, you've generated your buttons, you export those 7 layers, they come out as a bunch of files. You'd use the tool to create from asset controls. Once you have got the controls, yes, you can just place that down into your project and use it as you go, but why not go a level further and create a package for your team or a Git repository for your team, whichever way you want to go. We at Control Software Solutions have done this, where we have created a package where we add to. So CSS UI palette is what we've got. And as a developer working at CSS, what you would then be able to do is just go to your front panel and just use the ones that you care about. If there's one not there, then you'd request it. The workflow for that would be generate the buttons and all of that, and then release as a package. You get your update package, and you get the idea. That's all I want to cover on buttons. Any questions on that? All make sense? Yeah. Oh, well spotted. Yeah, so 6 for the button itself, for the Boolean state itself. The 7th one is for the icon. So when you're doing it over here, you've got your 32 by 32 pixel wide, regardless of how big it is. So good spot. Someone's paying attention. Nice. Yeah, this is the reason why he didn't want to go like after me, because they're asking questions. I can't ask any questions. Well, you're not asleep. That's good. Right. So next thing then I want to cover quickly is subpanels. Quick show of hands. I know less than 5 people as well. Do you not know what subpanel is? Raise your hand. It's okay to raise. You do know what subpanel is? Okay. Thought I was getting away with it. Have you done your core 1, core 2 stuff yet? Oh, okay, cool.
So perhaps I'll wrap you guys up in say.
I don't think we actually covered in too much detail what subpanel is, even if we actually do. But subpanel, in a nutshell, is you have a control that you put down into your block diagram, and instead of showing you the contents of that VI, it shows you the contents of some other VI. You can basically in place something else. Okay. So why would you use a subpanel? Everyone else has used it.
It allows you to have a main GUI, for example, where in the middle or on the side you have a panel that you dynamically load sub GUIs or smaller GUIs into that panel. And that's one way to architect your code.
It saves a lot of mucking around with tab controls.
Yeah.
But instead of having a tab control with umpteen layers of different GUI, you just load it again, it's just loaded dynamically in. Up to modularize your UIs.
All very good points. So what it does, just to push on that final point a little bit more, it helps you modularize code. So when you're looking for something, you're not looking through one big VI, even if it's got lots of things that can go onto that UI. You're not looking for depth and X, Y of where's the control and all that. The VI that goes in it could have its own block diagram somewhere else. So modularity wise, it becomes really simpler to debug.
Taken to its furthest, it can even enable you to deploy a plugin architecture where, let's say, version 1.0 of the application has 10 GUIs, but then you deliver an update, version 1.1, that has an 11th panel in there, and you don't need to modify the general code. If you write it in the right way, you just deliver the extra component, and it loads it dynamically at runtime, and you have another GUI.
Cool. Nice. So out of the people who have used LabVIEW for 5 years or beyond, you've done something like this before? Anyone not done it? 5 years and not used a panel before? Yeah. So would you go back and look at this? Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm succeeding now. At least one person can go home happy. I'm going home happy. Let's see if this next part triggers some more thoughts for the other guys who already use subpanels. So that's a very good question, right? So when you see something on your UI that causes an error, or you want to debug into it, what you need to remember is what you see on the UI is not what's running in that UI, in that VI. So as long as you know where that source VI is, debugging is as simple as just looking at that VI.
It's VI.
Yeah.
It's almost like just for reference to something.
Yeah.
You have open memory.
Exactly. It's running already in memory, so you look at that to debug that rather than the VI, which shows you the bits. You go to wherever that is, yeah. Right, moving on. So this is for the other people who said you've already used subpanels and you've got 5 years plus of experience. And let's see if you will recognize this, okay? So in this example, what I've got, some LabVIEW code, layout VI, which has got a subpanel in it, and it's got called content, okay? And the block diagram for it is empty. And I've got layout 2, which has got a splitter and 2 subpanels this time. One of them is called content, still the same as the other one, but the other one is called menu, and it sits just a little bit above. Okay. Again, block diagram has nothing in it. 2 VIs, which are called layouts. Then I've got a main VI. Now, before I run this, I just want to show you the runner part of it. So we've got one of them called menu, which I might put in the menu section of the subpanel, and it has got just a button handling. It's got nothing running right now in anger. And another sine wave generator, which generates a sine wave, and it's got a stop, nothing clever about it at all. So if I run this VI now and change between the 2 layouts, what you will see is the layout itself change, where you see the top menu section, or you don't see the menu section, completely independent of the main. Okay, so I will go into the block diagram for this just so you can see what it's doing. So we've got 2 layouts, which are, remember, empty. They just have the subpanels in them. Then I open the references to them and pass them in. Whenever I change the value for the layout selection, it will take one or the other of those layouts, and within that layout, it'll look for the subpanel that I care about. So in this case, on the top case, I've got content. In the bottom case, I've got menu. If the menu is not there, it'll get an error, so it won't do anything. But if the menu is found, then it'll try and load the menu VI, which is already running in memory, into view. But by doing that, what you've now got an alternative to is, instead of making things visible and invisible, you've now got different layout. The VIs are still already running. Both menu VI and the sine wave VIs are already running. That's something new, or you've done something like that before? If that's new to you, raise your hands. Can't please everyone. But so how does that sound? Tricky, useful, useless? Yeah. So what you're not doing is dealing with a whole bunch of property nodes to make them visible and invisible. Your menu system, your handling of menu is still running, because it'll be hopefully event-driven rather than polling like I've got. It won't take any memory, extra effort for the processor to run it. If you've got multiple subpanels, absolutely, it'll get more, complicated as such, where there's a how to debug definitely gets more interesting.
You still
Yes. And then what you can do is the layouts, as your application grows, you can add different layouts. and different sub panels within those layouts, so that you can say, oh, I have a side panel now, or I have a this, I have that. What about, you know, explored? I want to split and down the middle where I've got local data, then I've got remote data, whatever the variation might be. Oh, what?
Yes, layouts.
I've not actually tried that. You can.
Just reference.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reference space.
Yeah, and that is actually really useful if you're trying to create a mesh kind of thing of multiple things where, let's say, you've worked with hardware before where it's modular hardware, right? And that's where I know where you're coming from. So if you've got modular hardware that at runtime, things might change. You might add a new device, add a new measurement type or whatever, then you want to see that pop up. Scale it this way, then it becomes a lot more modular. I didn't want to use the word modular, but it becomes. All right. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
You know, any online resources for sort of
There are a few YouTube channels that cover it quite well. The layout part of it, I've not come across any. This, in fact, I'll go across to the next one. Hopefully I'll answer this in the next one about how you can make better use of this as well. Are there any other questions, or can we move forward?
Dynamically, so I'm saying on the very, very left there, you've got the two static references.
Yeah.
You dynamically
Provide a path? You can? Yeah. So nothing I've done here is new, and I'll point to that in just a moment. But yeah, you can definitely point to a plugin architecture of sorts where you then have a package library or whatever your plugin mechanism might be to then extend that functionality even further once it's deployed. So going back to the first video that I showed you guys about the thing, did anyone want to guess if this is written in LabVIEW or in Flutter, by the way? It is LabVIEW. All right, okay. I must try harder. No tips for next one. So yes, it is LabVIEW. The reason I was trying to play around with this particular mechanism is because I did exactly the same thing with Flutter, and the whole thing around that is making it a very, very responsive UI, right? So suitable for all sides of screens. So yeah, to do that, then I'll just next show you how the code looks. So this hopefully gives you an example. So on the left-hand side, you can see your UI manager and event manager. Does anyone know what framework that is? Yes, cool. So the main VI is, I don't think I go into the block diagram for anything else apart from layouts here. But yeah, the layout has got exactly like you saw just now with the header and the main section. No code in the block diagram. So the layouts just exist as layouts. And by name of the controls themselves is what we're using to call into the caller. So yeah, that's what it looks like. The running part of it is exactly like you saw in the example earlier. It's dynamically calling the, opening the path, opening the VI for the layout. Then yeah, you have that. So to answer your question that I asked, that is HSC's template that they use. It is based on DQMH, and I know we had some conversation around DQMH. In regards to what framework you use, that is not tied down to this. This is basically how you'd layer it. Okay. Any thoughts or questions before I move on? Okay. So to wrap it up then, when you think about, we've had some good conversations today around how sustainable team development works, a bunch of feedback and corrections from NI that could happen and so on. If you look at application development as a whole and what our roles are, hopefully most of us that are in a lab user group want to do things with LabVIEW, and you want to do things once, so you want to create some templates. So the things that you do once are defining a theme for your company, for your product, whatever that might be, defining and creating a whole bunch of controls and indicators that you want everyone to use. Okay, you do that once. You might have a project template, be it a known framework from the industry or your own homebrew, perfectly fine. Module templates, exactly the same, going on the back of what you were saying. You know, you build everyone's knowledge around that, then it becomes easier for every project. And you might think, oh, this doesn't need to fit in with our CSS one. Let's make it a customer focused one. So then you might need to create a new theme for that. And like I said, you hire a UI UX designer to create those kind of things if you're trying to go all out. Then you customize it. But for every UI, as a developer, what you don't want to do is recreate these things for every project. Okay, so to make it consistent with the project, you'd actually, I'm going to plug another thing here. Petru had a submission for make the front panels not exist for LabVIEW GUIs. I like the idea. For things that don't need a UI, don't edit them. Okay, leave them basic, leave them static as they are. And if you don't have something that needs to exist for the UI part of it, then we can actually work in a team. You're all working as part of a team, then that's all fine. If you're not, and if you're going solo, then you'd obviously create your own using the process that you've just seen me go through. Make sense? So going back to the first statement I made about appearances are deceiving, right? So what you've just seen me do there is create something that doesn't look like LabVIEW, using LabVIEW, so that we can do our best work thinking about what goes on the inside, so we can make the code more modular, we can do our work with the hardware that we buy, the software that we write, that can get sustainable over a long period of time. I'm going to wrap that up with that. Tumbleweed. So was that question any clearer? Or no further questions?
They were asking about LabVIEW in it.
Okay.
I think someone pointed them to the wiki about it.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice.
Any questions?
Yeah.
I've got a mention and then a question. So cool. Thanks for the presentation. It was fantastic, and I definitely learned a lot of things. Like I didn't know the colors website and some other things. So definitely a lot to take in. Just want to mention that there are some VIPM packages already available on VIPM that can serve as great palettes if you're looking for that. For example, there's one called DNC GUI palettes, which are amazing, and JKI have a package like that as well. So that's great. And second, this is a question. I noticed you mentioned that there's no code on the layout block diagrams, which is great, and that led me to see something I saw on LinkedIn maybe a few months ago. I think JKI posted that they are working on some sort of framework or UI framework where they call it a no-code GUI or something like that. Is this in any way related to that, or is that still very much their secret sauce? Because I don't think anyone knows how they are kind of doing that, but it looked really cool in the little LinkedIn demo they posted a few months ago.
I can't answer that.
You didn't like that post on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I did like it. No, but yeah, the way that you use layouts is that's layout. The subpanels is not just the way that we generally tend to use them, which is just a few stacks, layered as well.
It's converting your code to a truly abstractive front panel. That's what matters. It's basically taking it through layers of abstraction. So.
Any other questions, thoughts?
It's worth pointing out it's a brilliant presentation, but it is just scratching the surface. LabVIEW can make UI stuff easy, but you can do a lot with it. So, you can make dynamic UIs that allow users to split the UI up and programmatic, as the user modify what the application looks like. And the color of the buttons, just as another point, we script as. So we've got one set of buttons with all the glyphs, and then we just choose a color palette for that project, and that just goes through and modifies all the colors for us. So rather than leaving the same button with different colors, you can do it programmatically as well.
Yeah.
I think your presentation like 5 years ago, isn't it?
I think it was more like 10 years ago.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, thank you. Cheers.